Hello, welcome to the overview of Virgo season. This is just a little peek into kind of the major transits and movements of Virgo season. I think the most important thing about this Virgo season is that we enter it in an eclipse portal. It means that the season that we're going in is deeply transformative. It'll be a pretty chaotic transition. Virgo season isn't necessarily the wildest season, so it might feel like a bit of a jarring experience to go into a season that can sometimes feel a little more grounded, which depends on your natal chart. Um, but we get into it on August 22nd, and we still have a lunar Pisces eclipse to experience. And then we will have the new moon in Virgo, which will be a non eclipse moon, but when they're on the same axis, it's still a bit eclipsy. It's also the closing of the eclipse portal when you have a non-eclipse moon. So we're still working through and dealing with those themes. And important to know, we will be having the final full moon Virgo eclipse next year. So there's also kind of a little wink and a nod that in 6 months we'll be back with some of these topics and themes again, hopefully older, wiser, and with more understanding of the events that occur at this time. But starting off, we actually have something really fun, which I'm actually looking forward to, is that Mercury will go into Virgo 2 days after on August 24th, which I think is great because we will get a domicile exalted planet because Mercury is both domicile and exalted in Virgo. And so we will get a nice rulership for a good portion of the season. Why is stuff moving on my desk? I don't know. Is it a sign from the universe? It's a sign. It's called Abigail, organize your shit. Anyways, so we have Mercury going into Virgo. This is one of the happiest places for Mercury. There's heightened intellectual behavior, the ability to connect the dots. It can be a bit exhausting because it's like everything mentally kind of moves really quickly unless it's in a tricky part of your chart and has some weird aspects to it natally. But in general, a Virgo Mercury is the Mercury of the academic, the Mercury of a curious mind. It can be a little pretentious because it is so smart and so good at things, yes, but we should celebrate ourselves. But it's really fast moving. It's interested in understanding things. Now, I think the downside to this is like the focus can become so much on facts and details and stuff that you can sometimes suck all of the emotion out of something. But that's only if you go overkill with it. But it gives a nice sense of clarity for Virgo season. It feels like we'll be processing a lot, we'll be moving through things a lot, we'll be having a lot of different connections and mental shifts and conversations that are stimulating and interesting and fun. This also might be a time when you maybe take a course or find a teacher or a mentor. It's just really nice energy, especially if you're Mercury ruled, Virgo or Gemini. This is a time when you will be moving much quicker. Things will seem a bit easier. Like I said, you do have to be careful not to get stuck in the details with a Mercury and Virgo. So balance it with being like, not everything's important. But the things that are important, you'll be able to delve into and understand and process at a much faster rate, which is kind of nice. Then on the 27th, we have a Mercury cazimi, and guess what it coincides with? It coincides with a Pisces lunar eclipse. So the eclipse is during a Mercury cazimi within the 1 degree. So Mercury cazimis, I always love. It's a moment of clarity and connection. I think it's going to be really helpful with the lunar eclipse and explaining things. Also important to note, this is the last eclipse in Pisces. We'll still have that Virgo eclipse next year, but the last eclipse in Pisces for 9 years. So we are closing out a cycle here. I will do a longer video. I usually do a little astrology, little tarot reading for the new and full moon. I am thinking about maybe adding rituals in because I do a lot of rituals on the new and full moon, or maybe a meditation. If you're watching this and you want to tell me what you would like to have, you can let me know in the comments. Oh, also please like and subscribe if you enjoy my stuff. And you can follow me on Instagram and check out my readings over there, and also on my website, which is thekingwitch.com. I am always accepting new clients. and connecting with new people. I do a lot of different things, psychic channeled readings, tarot, astrology, natal chart readings, solar return readings, elections, which are the picking of dates for special things, fertility astrology, and much, much more. I also do Reiki and past life rectification. Anyways, so this Mercury Cazimi is powerful and potent. It's an opportunity to connect and to understand things better. Like I said, I think it will be helping us with the lunar eclipse and with understanding what the eclipse cycle was all about. So, what has been happening over the last 18 months and the things that have ended specifically, because we are at an ending here. Yes, it's with the North Node, but it's still the last Pisces eclipse. And it is a North Node eclipse. So, it is about, while we're ending, it's about moving on so that we can proceed into the future with more clarity and knowledge and alignment with our purpose and our path. And we're finishing it out with the rulership of a Jupiter, a Jupiter in Leo. So it's a bit of a spicier, more. If one of the lessons, I'll say this, if one of the lessons of the Pisces Virgo eclipses was like standing up for yourself, setting boundaries, believing in yourself, putting yourself out there, this is going to be an absolute affirmation because that is something that Jupiter and Leo is very aligned with. That's what I think I'll say. But I will be doing a longer video, but it's important to note that this is happening during this season and basically colors the whole thing. Then on the 6th of September, we have Uranus stationing retrograde. It will go retrograde and stop at early degrees of Gemini and then move forward by the end or beginning of this year. Well, next year, depending. I don't have that date at the top of my head. But we are going into a retrograde. Uranus retrogrades, they can be a bit more thoughtful. It allows us to kind of process, like direct Uranian moments are like jump off that cliff, do the thing, innovation, kind of throwing paint at a wall, doing something to do something. And the retrograde requires us to then problem solve. Like, okay, we did the things. We now have some data. We now see how it worked out. And now we have to kind of resolve and fix them. Like, not everything you do on the spur of the moment is going to work out or be seamless, obviously. And so with the Uranus retrograde, we get several months to kind of process and work through how we want to see stuff and how we want to move through things. Also, if you have a retrograde Uranus, it might feel nicer. I have one. It gives you more time to kind of make decisions about stuff that you want to do. You feel less pressured to kind of do things in an erratic way. It allows you to kind of balance the pros and cons of an innovation or a new idea. It basically buys you a little bit of time instead of the kind of that is very Uranian. But yeah, it's another kind of slowing the sky. And also thinking at this point, we now have Pluto retrograde, we have Neptune retrograde, we have Saturn retrograde, we have Uranus retrograde. So we're getting to the part of the year when things are kind of slowing down and we're kind of processing the insanity of the earlier part of the year. And then once we get into, we're jumping ahead, but in October, so next season, we do get the Venus retrograde, and we also get why am I blanking? We also get the Mercury retrograde. That'll be simultaneous, which back in 2025, we had a similar configuration last year, except those were also paired with eclipses. So don't take them as a literal translation. Also different signs. Actually oppositional signs. They were in Aries. Anyways, another thing that's important to note, and we're going to get to it in a second, is that we're entering the Venus retrograde shadow period because it goes from early degrees of Scorpio to late degrees of Libra, and we'll be moving into Scorpio this month. Actually, what's really fascinating is that Mercury and Libra will be Mercury and Venus will both be going into different signs on the same day. And I saw someone else talking about it, and I really wish I could remember whom was talking about this. Just know it wasn't me. But Mercury and Libra will enter the abyss, enter their retrograde separately, but they will both station direct on the same day, which is very interesting. And they'll be interacting through this retrograde. So it's important to note that this Virgo season is the setup for that. And that gets me to the point where on the 10th of September, Mercury goes into Libra, Venus goes into Scorpio. Now, Venus in Scorpio is in detriment. It's not a place that Venus is super thrilled necessarily, but I'm honestly addicted to detriment Venuses as someone with a detriment Venus. My babes. Um, oh, it's not detriment, it's fall. I always say them wrong, even though I know the difference. So let's learn the difference. Detriment is when the opposite planet is where that planet is domicile. So no, I am right. I don't know why I'm saying this. I was right. It is detriment. Anyways, we're going to learn this anyways. This was an opportunity for me to teach you this. If you don't know it, if you do, ignore me. So, detriment is when the opposing sign is the happy home of that sign. So, Taurus is ruled by Venus. So, Venus in Scorpio, which is opposing Taurus, is then its detriment. Fall is, so for instance, a good example of fall is Mars in Capricorn, is an exalted planet. It's basically an honored guest in that sign. And so in Cancer, it is in fall. Honestly, I have more issues with fallen planets than I do with detriment planets. I find fallen planets can be a little more difficult to manage, whereas detriment planets, it's like, and it's all different than you expect over here. You know, Venus and Scorpio can be very dark and kinky. It tends to, you don't have to be someone, if you have one, you don't have to be into things that are kinky, but you might be someone who's open to talking about taboo topics. You might be someone who's interested in why people behave a certain way because there is this kind of like fascination with funk, with like how connection works in like a subversive way. Is Venus in Scorpio. It's also an opportunity to kind of see relationships in the harsh truth of what they can be. You know, they can be draining, they can be overwhelming. You can be seen and sexualized and not loved for who you are. Also, then we have kind of the counterpoint, which is Mercury in Libra, which doesn't necessarily have any kind of like, it doesn't have any exaltation or detriment, but it is an air sign. And so there is a bit of fluidity. There might be some nice communication and connection when it comes to relationships. It is interesting because they're kind of like juxtaposed to each other, where like you have Venus that's kind of like getting their hands dirty and all these things, and Mercury's over here with like cotton, like with like lovely cotton sheets and a fresh book and a cup of tea. It's just I find that Mercury, like Libra Mercuries, are very pleasant. They're also often very smart people. Um, can they become a little too caught up in pleasing everybody, especially when it comes to making an idea palatable? Which can be a gift. Like it means that they can present really difficult topics in an accessible way, but it can also be the kind of over what am I trying to say? Kind of like making something so palatable that it loses substance can be a problem with, Mercury Libras, where they tend to give a little too much ground in an argument. Um, However, when they are sure that they are right, they are stubborn about it. But it's very much a big switch. Like they're either really malleable and trying to make everything work, or they're like, no, absolutely the hell not. I know this is right. How dare you? Because Libra is justice. Libra is about balance and about finding a middle ground in something. So it is kind of interesting because Venus is over here getting all dirty and messy, and Libra's like, then I washed my hands and took a shower, and Venus is like, elbows deep in the mud, dealing with relational issues, but also having fun and making mud pies. I don't want to make it sound like, Scorpio Venuses don't have fun. It's just a little messy, which honestly, enjoyable. And really interesting, on this same day, we have the new moon in Virgo. So we have this transitioning Mercury while we have that new moon. And once again, I'll be doing a longer video on it. So I hit my hand on my flower pot. Oh, here's my money tree, by the way. Sometimes in my shot, sometimes not. Also, the pot is handmade, which I love. Anyways, sorry, my ADHD might have just taken off a little bit. But with this new moon in Virgo, it's a lovely reset. And also remembering that Pisces lunar eclipse had a Mercury cazimi. So there's some kind of understanding and revelation here. There's also a feeling of rebalancing. It might be difficult because we might be so discombobulated at this point with all the eclipse energy that this feels counterintuitive. But I do think it's going to be a nice little like breathe, breathe. Everyone take deep breaths. It's all going to be okay. We're in the Venus shadow period. We're fine. We're going to work through it. We're going to think through it. We're going to find common ground and work with the people we need to work with. And we're not but probably going to blow up all of our relationships during the Venus retrograde. And I'll just say this, here's the deal. If your relationships have already been purged, cleansed, dissolving, the Venus retrograde is doing nothing new. So don't be too worried about it. I know I keep saying it because I just want people to be prepared, but like Venus retrogrades can also be a beautiful time to reconnect with your values, to reconnect with your sense of self, to ask yourself, what do I deserve in relationship? What do I want moving forward? Have things changed? I also find that Venus retrogrades can be a great time to process your sexuality and your relationship to yourself and your body. Um, Lovely time to think about identity and how you wish to be perceived in the world, and how that may or may not clash with societal norms and with the way people think of you. It might be time to kind of introduce this to, if you've already done the process, this could be the time to introduce, things you've been talking about to friends and family, depending on how safe you feel. But yeah, there's an element of being able to kind of be like, yeah, now's the time, with the energy that we're moving into towards the end of the season. And I think there's also, after these eclipses, it feels like there is, I mean, you can always kind of ignore, I've done this before actually. You could actually ignore the eclipses and feel worse after them. But if you are truly aligned and connected to them, and really focused on growth and shifts, and aligning yourself with your highest path, I think there might be a lovely sense with this new moon in Virgo of like, I'm ready. I'm ready for the next phase. I'm ready to move forward. I'm ready to release the past. I'm ready to connect with my future self and what I deserve and what I need, and to not, accept things that I don't enjoy. Because Virgo can force itself to suffer, but an evolved Virgo knows what it wants and knows how to say it without harming people, and knows how to be like, hey, that's not for me, and that's a boundary. Can be a really beautiful Virgo quality. Now, do a lot of Virgos really struggle, especially up until their Saturn return, at least, with setting boundaries and not over giving? Absolutely. But it does feel like this is in a new level of connection and stability in a very chaotic world. If you're like, I may not know what's going to happen to me and what's going to happen to the world, but I feel a really strong and renewed sense of connection and care for myself that I'm going to continue doing regardless of people's responses to me. Like, I deserve to be seen and heard, and the people who are meant for me are going to love that about me, and the people who are not are just going to fall away. Which, while that can be difficult, we're not meant to be acceptable to everyone, and we're not meant to please everyone. And so this is an opportunity to see that and go, I can be myself and let go of the people that I was never meant to be close to. And that will open you up to connect to new friends, new connections, new communities, or a reconnection if you've been feeling like those connections are not close. So it's quite nice. Anyways, final thing that happens is on the 19th of September, we have Chiron retrograde re-entering Aries. It was at the late degree of Aries for like a year. So a lot of themes around the traumas and the woundings of the last year were also, I don't like feminizing and masculinizing things, but Aries is very much about the male psyche and about how we see it in society. And so how men show up in society and how afraid they are of things. And something that's interesting that I've noticed is even men that I find to be nice and pleasant are very hesitant. There's like a delineation between how they behave in average relationships and how honest and open they are, and how closed off they become when it comes to romantic relationships or any relationships that require intimacy. And so I think that might be a major theme, is like, why are people who are born men or present masculine in society, why are they socialized to, you know, not share their feelings whenever there's a sense of intimacy? And when there's not a sense of intimacy, they feel really free to express themselves. I mean, as someone who dates men, something I notice is I can tell when they've lost interest oftentimes, which is fine because I don't want someone who's not interested in me, and I'm very rarely attracted to people in general anyways. But I can always tell when they've lost interest to me when they start being honest. And that's not the people that I end up dating, but one of the green flags is that they, when I become honest, they become more interested. But what I notice in general, because I don't want every man to like me, and I don't need that. Please no. But what I've noticed is that the more honest they are, if they are not healthy and connected to themselves, the less likely it is that they are romantically interested. And I find that to be fascinating. And I think that's just kind of a small facet of a much broader issue. But I think with Chiron and Aries, it's like about honesty and connection and being yourself, and where are the places that you shut that down. And for some of us, we shut it down when we are not safe, and we shut it down when we feel threatened. But especially when it comes to like patriarchy and misogyny, certain groups, often men, do the opposite, where they're more open. I guess they're more open when they're safe because they find intimacy to be dangerous, which me having my little epiphany here, because they find intimacy to be dangerous. And if they're not attracted to someone, then they don't have the fear of rejection. And so they're honest about themselves, which fascinating. But I think that's a theme. I know I'm kind of getting off on a tangent because I'm thinking about something specific that happened to me this week. But Chiron and Aries is about that. It doesn't have to be just men. That's just kind of the group that is going to kind of play this out on the stage. But in your own personal life, the place in which you feel safe, the ways in which you protect yourself, um, how you tend to wounds around things that are masculine or around violence, because Aries can be a violent sign, and how you alchemize and transform that to tend and to care for yourself. And these are not going to be new themes. This is a retrograde back into those things, but you will be connecting dots. And these are kind of some of the areas where you might be doing that. So yeah, fun times. We get to go back and relive that. I'll just say later degrees, Chiron was rough, and I'm ready for it. Although the ingress into Taurus was also rough. I was so insecure that week, and I was like, why? Like, I have my insecurities. I'm aware of them. And then I was like, why am I so insecure? And I was like, oh, Chiron has entered my ninth house. So of course I'm like, do I not know anything? Um, if you had that experience, let me know in the comments. Anyways, then we get to the 22nd and of September, and we move into Libra season, which is going to be when we experience the beginning of the Venus retrograde. I can't quite remember when the Mercury retrograde starts, but it happens a little bit after. But it is a time when we will be going into the depths of our relationships and how we relate to people and how we connect, and the ways in which identity and sexuality and society all intersect. And then this is also very dependent on where it is in your chart. So please check out where early degree Scorpio and late degree Libra are in your chart. I actually had a very beautiful session with a client where it looked like there might be some kind of reconciliation with someone very important to them. So it's not all doom and gloom. I think some really beautiful stuff comes out of Venus retrogrades. And also, if you're like, am I going to like make good connections or find friends or find a romantic partner at this time? I'll just say this: if you have a tricky chart, sometimes retrogrades are the best time to meet people. Does it add a layer of complexity to your relationships? But you already have a tricky chart, so it's not that crazy. Anyways, my loves, this is the overview for Virgo season. It is rich and deep and complex, but I do think ultimately very rewarding, if you can sit with the energy and allow it to be processed, which is a very Virgoian thing. Um, anyways, my loves, I think that's it. I was like, do I have anything else to say? I don't think so. Anyways, that's it. Of course, please like and subscribe if you enjoy my stuff. You can always connect with me on here, on my website, or on Instagram if you have any private questions you would like to know. I am more than willing to answer basic level questions. Once they get past a certain point, you do need to book a reading. But I love sharing information and connecting with folks. Anyways, much love, y'all. Have a blessed, blessed Virgo season. Bye.